Croeso, hello, welcome to RobRyanRed, the Wrexham podcast brought to you by Red 10 People Development. On this week's podcast, we'll take a look back at the Crawley win, get our expert view from our very special guest, and take a look at what looks to be quite a tricky week ahead for the Reds. All that and more on today's podcast.
RobRyanRed.
So, I'm Rich Fay, delighted to be joined not by Nathan Salt. No fantasy football talk this week. I'm joined by a proper journalist, Richard Sutcliffe from The Athletic. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate, and pleasure to step off the sub bench while Nathan suns himself wherever he is in the world.
You're our Stephen Fletcher, aren't you? That bit of experience that we need every once in a while to bail us out.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was saying, yeah. You might have to go to Scotland for a few years to find your feet. That's what I'm trying to...
Guilty.
Crawley at the weekend looked like the type of game that could have been tricky again. Very similar to our last meeting with Crawley. In the end, it was quite hard work. Not a classic, but another real good statement of intent, I thought, watching from afar.
Definitely. I think the result was everything to me. I know we're only mid-September, but what happened on Monday night at Birmingham was, pretty chastening. They're going to run away with the league. Don't get me wrong. Probably get 100 points in the process, but it's one of them when you're league leaders and you get a bit of a tonk. It's 3-1, but it could have been a lot more by the end. And then you back that up. You drop points at home or maybe even get beat, which could easily have happened. And then you've got 2 away games coming in. Suddenly you start thinking, where's it going to be now then? And like I said, we're not even at 10 games, which is, Phil insists he doesn't look at the league table till 10 games, which, I agree with that because I think it's that's when it starts forming as a league. But even so, I thought it was a big one. So to emerge like they did, and they didn't play well, it was. I think Scott Lindsay's one of the best managers in lower leagues. I really did. What he did at Crawley last season was sensational. Because started from an absolute standing start, real problems with the owners going on. It didn't seem a very happy club, and yet the football they played. I know they lost 4-0, 4-1, whatever it was, in March, but they were such a good side. I watched them that day, and that night I thought, I wouldn't want to play these in the playoffs. Obviously at the time, Wrexham could have dropped into that. So I just thought, I didn't think they'd be as dangerous as putting 8 past MK Dons like they did, and then obviously romp through the final. But I thought they looked a good team. And then this summer, he's had all those players taken away. The two guys have got 25 goals and 15 goals gone because there's no stability really there. And he's got it's a different recruitment model they've gone down. There's not a lot of players that you think, he's an obvious signing in League One. But they were a great footballing team. They obviously haven't got that cutting edge up front. So the lad who scored, he missed an absolute sitter near the end of the first half, and it wasn't the only chance they missed. Arthur made a couple of really good saves, one down to his right, which was an excellent stop. But they were the better team on the ball. I didn't look at any expected goals or anything like that, but I would imagine Crawley's was, if not higher than Wrexham's, then they'll have been very, very similar. But Wrexham found a way to do it, as they always do, and got the 3 points. And I thought that was really, really important in terms of the just going forward, because back-to-back away games, long trips as well. You don't want to go into them with no points from 2 games. All right, you'd still be 3rd, 4th in the league, but I thought they set them up nicely. And, if they got 4 points from these next, or even 3, they're looking to be a really good position when we do get to that 10-game mark, which is all important.
We love hindsight, don't we, as football fans, as journalists?
Yeah.
Paul Mullin started at the weekend. Were you surprised to see him go into the team, or did you think that Phil would always try and get him back as early as he could, given how influential he is? And, we said when you were last on the podcast, you can almost take for granted how good Paul Mullin is, isn't it? I mean, last season when he got player of the season, we were saying it wasn't Paul Mullin. Then when you look back at it, it was like, it was Paul Mullin.
Yeah.
Are you surprised he came into the squad, though, given how well Jack Marriott had played?
I was, because, you're so surprised that when we're doing match briefings now at The Athletic, and you sort of, beforehand, you think of a few topics that might be, usable in this, and one of mine was going to be, when does Paul Mullin get unleashed? Will it be one of these 2 away games? Because I didn't think he'd play. Jack Marriott, to me, has been superb in the league, and I thought, he deserved to start. But then obviously you get the teams at 2:00, and I thought, right, well, fair enough. Came in. He did work so hard. We did a touch map of his for the match piece, and he was all over the pitch as you always expect with him, as Jack Marriott would do. But he still wasn't sharp, and I think that's going to come. I don't know when it'll be. He's getting there. He's certainly as mobile as he's going to be. It's just that sharpness. There was a nice pass from I think it was McLean pulled it back to him, and he sort of snatched at it. Whereas you thought, Jack Marriott had a chance in late on when there was a breakaway and he hit it smoothly, just because he's playing every week, so that's fine. But I did ask Phil about it because I was intrigued, and I was glad they won, because when you ask a question like that, you get an honest answer. Whereas if you ask a question when they've drawn 1-1 like that, then he could have got defensive over it, because it's almost like you're picking holes in the team. But I thought what he said was interesting. He says that there isn't a first choice 11 anymore. Also, there's certain bits, this is me speaking now, not Phil, but there's like your George Dobson's going to start, Arthur's going to start, so they're in the first 11. But it's interesting, with Paul Mullin and Jack Marriott, he doesn't see one as a first choice over the other, which I think, A, really interesting, but B, absolutely fantastic for the team, because that means Jack Marriott is at Paul Mullin's level. And, over 46 games, chances are, that one of them's going to fire in each match, you'd hope.
I mean, that is almost the yardstick of how far Wrexham have come. Absolutely. You've now got a situation where Paul Mullin's not guaranteed to start, and like you said, you might be saying, "God, what's going on wrong? What's going on there? Then why is he not in the squad?" But it's like, Jack Marriott. That's why he's not playing. That's fantastic for us to have. If we're talking about other individuals, someone who is a starter really at the moment, Max. I mean, wow. He just seems to be getting better and better and better. Obviously, his game's not about goals, but the fact he's scoring as well is, if anything, I'm quite worried, because it means suitors are going to be looking at him and saying, God, this is a young player that we could maybe poach in a few years. It's going to be interesting to see how Wrexham, as long as we're doing well, is not a problem. But if we did have a season of stability, I'm sure Max will be getting offers from everywhere, really. How impressed are you by him? Because you by the time you started covering Wrexham, he probably wasn't even in the squad, really, was he, when you first got on the patch?
Really,
and now,
sort of end of last year, really, wasn't it, when you started to come into the team regularly? And you look at him, and to me, he's saved the club an absolute fortune in terms of last summer, because if you'd have been looking at developing the squad in sort of November, December, obviously a long way off getting promotion at that stage, but they were going through the league, then you'd have thought, right-sided defender would be a big thing, and obviously they brought Brunt in, which obviously was part of the thinking. But Max, outstanding. And like I say, now he's adding goals, and it's not just goals, it's actual aerial threat. The ball was fantastic coming in, but the way he lost his man, that was even better. It wasn't like he rose above him, he actually peeled round the back and heads it across goal, and obviously Stephen Fletcher goes in, tried to nick it. Whether he'll get awarded it, I don't know if there'll have any cameras on the line. But, for Max, because it's not just that, he scored in the pre-season friendly against Fleetwood. He scored, is it 3 now in the league, something like that? And then he got the goal at Colchester.
I think so, yeah.
At the end of last season.
It was his cutback for Lee as well, wasn't it, at the weekend?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was his quick thinking, because it was another fantastic corner, very similar to the Birmingham one, where O'Connor put it right under the bar. Keeper sort of flapped at it, knocked it to the back of the 6-yard box. First person to move was Max, and just laid it into his path on the volley, and he's in the back of the net. And he's turned into a fantastic footballer. He really is. And, the way he's going, people will look at him, of course they will. But if Wrexham are keeping moving, and, can't not, they are the top of League One after back-to-back promotions, so you can't move much faster at the moment. And, they've got him tied down. I think he's he could be one of these, like we all think Arthur's going to be. He's going to be a star going right through the leagues, hopefully. Max could be exactly the same.
You mentioned there as well, almost in the nicest possible way, forget that we bought Brunt. We've got Scar. We had a really productive summer, it felt like. And obviously Arthur is probably the pick of the bunch signing-wise, but he's already been at the club. Doesn't quite feel like a new signing.
Yeah, I get
Dobson, I can't believe I ever thought that Dobson wouldn't be playing games. Like, wow.
Yeah.
What did you make of the summer business? And are you surprised at all that there are some of these players we've not quite seen yet? Because, Andy Cannon took a while to settle. Tom O'Connor took a while to settle. Do you think it'll get to the stage where maybe in January, that's where we'd see someone like Brunt? It takes a while for them to settle. What have you made of I guess, like I said, of Dobson, and what have you made of the players who haven't actually started yet? Because Revan, after Bolton away, you'd say he should be starting every week, and feels like we've not seen him since, really.
Yeah. I think the first choice 11 will be very different come January. I think there'll be a few. O'Connell's been fantastic for me, and he fully deserves to be where he is. But Scar must be, fighting there. He's not come to sit on the bench, has he? He's not come from Plymouth, where he's won the League One title. He's not come here to sit on the bench. Same with Rathbone. He'll be playing every week for Rotherham. Really good box-to-box midfielder. The thing with him, I'm not quite sure what they bought him to be yet, because obviously we've seen him up front in a couple of games, particularly Bolton. We've seen him slotting in, played instead of Cannon, which I think is probably his role, that box-to-box and hopefully getting the goals. And then people keep saying, well, yeah, he's a bit like Elliot Lee. He could play that, and he's the competition for Elliot Lee, and I've not seen that yet. I don't think he's got the goal threat that Elliot Lee has, all the trickery, if I'm honest. So I'm not quite sure. He's going to be a great player, 375 grand that they paid for him. That's going to be a bargain. Rotherham were really upset to lose him. I think they had a really good summer. I looked across it. The one thing I would say is that I'm still a little bit concerned up top over the season, because we're now going into October's around the corner, where we're suddenly going Saturday, Tuesday, and can Fletcher, Palmer do that? So far, absolutely faultless, the pair of them. I think they've been brilliant. I really do. They went after an experienced big striker. They definitely wanted that to play alongside probably Mullin in your first thinking, but now obviously it's Mullin / Marriott. That was definitely, you spoke to agents, and they were definitely after that. Somebody in the sort of 29, 30, 31 who good at taking all the kicks, like Palmer's done for 2 or 3 years, but an upgrade, you might say, because they played at a high level. But and that's nothing against Ollie, who I think has been absolutely superb this season. But they didn't get that. Obviously, they didn't. So they went another route. They go for the potential. And Mo's obviously one for the future. He'll be one of these that it might be by January. He might be knocking on the door, but it might be next season. Because as we saw, we've only seen him once in that Salford game, and he was raw. And probably trying a bit too hard, if we're honest. He's the record signing, though I know obviously the club don't really want to make a big thing of that, because but obviously James McLean went and blew that this week when he revealed his fee. So I'm afraid that's a done. But that's the one thing that when we get to the depths of November, December, Ollie Palmer's had a couple of times when he's left the ground with ice on his knee. I think in Peterborough I saw him with it on. Stephen Fletcher, could he then step in and do 3 games in a week? I very much doubt it. And that's where it might fall down a little bit in terms of the recruitment. But everything else, base is covered. You've got fantastic competition, wing backs, all 3 central defender positions, right through the middle of the pitch, because Dobson's a level above Evans, but Evans can still step in and do a really good job, a really good League One job. Dobson's just outstanding. That's no thing on Evans, but he's just the difference. But I say Rathbone and Cannon could be interchangeable. Elliot Lee's the one, because I don't think there's competition for him, despite, Rathbone might slot into that position. I'm not sure on that. But out wide, like you say, Seb, will he eventually take over from McLean in that position? Does McLean then move into the centre of midfield? If he does do that, obviously Seb needs to work on his defence. He was brilliant at Bolton. He did the job he was brought in from the right-hand side. But, I was sat next to you in Vancouver, and he looked a little bit ropey there. And there's been a couple of games when I've thought,
to be fair, I think I was a little ropey in Vancouver as well, so I'll let him off for that one.
Yeah, that could be that. Yeah. But no, I do think the summer I thought they covered every base, apart from possibly that big lad up front. But having said that, they've got 3 people who can fill that role, so maybe they are covered.
Yeah, and like you say, another sort of milestone for us is the fact that George Evans, Gorgeous George, isn't even a starter anymore, because I did not see that happening sort of 6 months ago. And as much as it pains me, Dobbo is, wow. Can already see him getting sort of player of the season, definitely player of the season, just the way that he operates. And again, this is maybe going forward, like you said, don't kind of have that replacement for Elliot Lee at the moment, but maybe the way to get around that is you change your midfield to a flatter sort of 3 if you're playing away from home, whatever. We'll see what Parky has up his sleeves, because these are 2 tricky games coming up. Before we get on to them though, Sooty, what have you made at the start of the season? Obviously, we're not talking tables, but we both probably expected us to be top half, maybe around the playoffs, but they exceeded expectations so far. And could it be back to back to back?
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely. I always thought they'd be around top 6. I really did. You know, even before they finished, you know, the final day of the deadline, when obviously the final week when they were just bringing play and they're trying to do this, that, and the other in the last week, I thought, yeah, they'll be top 6. Top 1's going to be gone. You know, I don't see anybody but Birmingham. You know, I watched them, not just that game, but a friend of mine was reporting on at Rotherham, and the lad who got the third goal from Celtic, you know, absolutely ran that midfield again, and you think he's going to be like a cheat code this season in League One. Stansfield up front, you know, you've got Alfie May behind, 20 odd goals, both in the last 2 seasons. So they're going to be away and gone. But second place, you know, nobody else has, like, we're early, but, you know, Rotherham have been losing games. Huddersfield have lost games. You know, Bolton have had a horrendous couple of results. Bounce back this weekend, obviously. So it could be one of these where, you know, it's up for grabs, is that second spot. Long way to go, but the way Wrexham have started against good teams, like I said, Crawley, you know, for favourites to get relegated, but they're going to take points off people. You know, if they can just start scoring goals, you know, obviously that's been a problem for them. But obviously the ground out that. But the way they've dealt with other teams, you know, going to Bolton, 3rd in last season's League One, going to Peterborough, 4th in last season's League One, and getting 4 points from them, you know, and 2 clean sheets. Absolutely fantastic. And the football they played at home, it wasn't great on Saturday. You know, you couldn't put your finger on that. It might have been a bit of dent in confidence because what happened at Birmingham. But the previous matches, the football they played, you know, I know people going about long ball, and you know, sometimes you just hit the ball. You know, you look at League One, a lot of teams could do with doing that. Huddersfield, that joke goal they conceded last week, the 1 week before when Bolton, joke goal conceded by trying to play out from the back. Sometimes you just got to clear it, and I love that. But they are playing out from the back. You can't call this a long ball team. You know, when you've got to play, you know, you're playing through midfield when you've got Dobson, who's just fantastic on the ball and finds 5 yards. Wherever he's on the pitch, he finds 5 yards, and we're doing as a complete aside, we're doing a book on the 100 best footballers, and I've got Bobby Moore I was doing, and I'm just reading up.
I thought you go say George Dobson then.
Yeah, no, maybe next season, But at the moment, he's missed the cut. When we do the paperback, maybe
101 he is at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah. Plus a couple, yeah. Anyway, but I'm doing this on Bobby Moore, so I've been looking into his career, and he had Malcolm Allison he replaced in the West Ham team, and there was one bit of advice that Allison had for Bobby Moore, who was like 16, 17. He says, before you get the ball, know what you're going to do with it. And George Dobson, to me, epitomises that, because he gets the ball, he knows exactly where it's going, whether he's going to spread the play to the other flank, to, you know, left to right, or it's going back to the centre half, or he's going to find Elliot Lee. He knows, and that's why he's such an upgrade to me on Evans, who is such a good footballer. But because of Dobson, the move that Wrexham are playing at a faster pace than last year. The problems with last season came when the opposition parked the bus, you know, which is what I expected Shrewsbury to do. Obviously, they conceded after 15 minutes, but until then, Wrexham had 70% possession, but they were actually opening them up. They were actually playing fast football, whereas last season, it was that fraction of a second slower, and that meant these teams like Harrogate and Bradford and Tranmere all came to defend the goal, meant they were in position by the time Wrexham got in a dangerous spot, whereas this season, I think they're moving a lot faster. The difference on Saturday was they didn't. Don't know why. Might be confidence. Or maybe George Dobson just had an off day, because there was a lot of mistakes in that performance, particularly in the midfield, some terrible passes. But they ground it out and got the 3 points. So I think it's going to be a cracking season. You know, I really do. I think they'll definitely finish top 6. Maybe they might finish second. I don't know. We'll see. Like I say, the one worry is the strikers for me.
Do you think, given that you're more boots on the ground and as you get the sort of daily insights, those sort of chats with club personnel, do you think Parky's asked about this reputation he's got, that he plays this negative long ball football, or do you think he's like, because like we said, if you follow Wrexham, you know we play effective football. There's a big difference between effective and long ball football. You only have to watch the bloody goals we score. Every month we seem to score a goal, the season contender for the whole division. You look at that bloody, the first goal we scored this season against Wickham. Was that the first goal or the second goal? Like, that is not long ball football.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think Parky's bothered by this reputation he's got?
No, maybe deep down, because nobody wants to be known as, you know, Parkisaurus or whatever, dinosaur football or whatever the opposition fans will come up with, or terrorist football, which I've seen. But like I said, I think it's a misnomer. There's times last season when it was a bit longer, and he likes to play direct, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I saw a lot of his Bradford team, and people. I used to laugh about it last season and say, "Oh yeah, League One, he's reached his level," and you think, well, he's won promotion twice in that level. He got Bradford, who were an average team, to the playoffs. He also got Charlton to the playoffs when he was manager in 2008, 9, something like that, in a good league when there were Leeds, Norwich, Southampton, teams like that in there. So he knows what he's doing. And I don't think it's as long ball as people say. And I don't think, there's times sometimes, and I know that terrible game at Salford, which was obviously the one when people's patience broke in the away end and the Parky sort it out, and you don't know if they meant subs or get the ball down, but that was one of them games where they got sucked in by a team who wanted to play long ball and fell for it, really. So I don't know, maybe deep down, if somebody said to you you're a long ball manager, they'd probably he'd have a much more articulate defence of himself than I can give him. But I would have thought when you're looking at your 5 promotions on your CV and you're top of League One now, you turn around and say, well, if you think I'm long ball, it's working. It's my big bugbear with football at the moment, like I've said, when everyone thinks they need to be Pep Guardiola by playing out from the back. He can do it at City with the players he's got, but when you're bottom of Division 4, I don't see centre-half giving it to the keeper who gives him it back. You're just inviting massive trouble because they're not comfortable on the ball. So I think he gets the balance just right. I really do. But obviously all the football experts out there who think everyone should be Pep probably think different, but he's probably not that bothered. He's top of the league and he's got all these promotions in the bank, so why not?
So Sooty, 2 daunting away trips perhaps coming up. Ahead of the games, we've caught up with a few different podcasts. First of all, we'll listen to Steve from the Orient Outlook podcast and get their thoughts ahead of this weekend's match. So Steve, thank you very much for joining us on Rob Ryan Red. I mean, we've been having a little reminisce before we came on air about, I guess, what's happened since we last saw you. It was that season when you won the National League title, we stayed down, took us a few more years. What's happened at Orient since then?
Well, since we kind of faced each other, and again, we were saying like how well we remember kind of the season we won the National League Championship. It feels like an utter age ago. We spent 2 seasons in League Two. Again, found our feet in the first season. Big adjustment back into the Football League in the EFL. Obviously, we had the tragic passing of Justin as soon as we got promoted, which was a really, really tough time at the club. It took the club a while to find its feet again. But I think the key turning point for Leyton Orient in the last couple of years was the appointment of Richie Wellens, where he came in and he's done such a fantastic job in the 2.5 years he's been here. He literally turned what looked like at one point a sinking ship, where we looked like we could actually go back down into the National League. He kind of steadied the team, brought back a confidence and a belief that was missing, and then built his own team for the following season. And that season we just were really consistent. We had some really good players. We done the basics really well. It's something that Richie talks about. Just do the basics and everything else will follow, which happened. We had a great team spirit, a good workmanship in the team, and yeah, we won the League Two title with fairly little fanfare and little drama. We were like top by the 3rd game in that season, and we never kind of relinquished it. And we kind of went from there. Really good performances individually and collectively. Some big plays for us, got some big moves. So Lawrence Vigouroux is now at Swansea. He got a move to Burnley. He's now at Swansea. Paul Smith got a big move to QPR. So we had to kind of rebuild in our first season back in League One, which was last season. But again, really strong season. Difficult start last season. Really difficult first 4 games. Were pointless after those. I think we had 1 point actually, to tell a lie. And it looked like we might struggle, but we found a really rich vein of form in December. Went unbeaten until like mid-February, and then we had a little push for the playoffs, which was unbelievable. At the end, we came a bit too short. I think a lack of squad depth hurt us in the end, a bit of lack of investment in January, where we could have done with a few more experienced heads and a bit more quality. But last season, we finished 11th, and I think we're all fairly happy with that. We seem to have a good mix of youth last season and experience. Richie Wellens, again, I can't sing his praises enough. Done a really good job of managing the team, and we, knocked some big clubs off their pedestals. We beat Bolton. We Pompey away. Went to Pompey and beat them 3-0. We're 3-0 up at half time. Couldn't believe that. And had a really strong second half to the season. So I think we were all kind of optimistic about this season. You know what it is, how it's like. The fixture list comes out and you're buzzing. And we looked at the fixture list, and our first 3 fixtures for this season were Bolton at home, Charlton away, Birmingham City at home. And you look at that and you're like, really? Really, is this how it's going to start? But, the fans kind of looked at it in terms of that's going to be really difficult. But Richie Wellens was like, no, we go into every game wanting to win it. We shouldn't be expecting to lose. We're not little Leyton Orient anymore. We did lose all 3 of those games, but just by the odd goal. And I would say those performances were really good. We played really well. We should have beat Bolton. Charlton, we lost to a 96-minute goal. Birmingham, we were on the par with Birmingham for most of that game. Birmingham are obviously kind of, in terms of quality, much higher quality than us, but we matched them, I think, and down to a goalkeeping error or 2, whichever way you look at it. We lost that game 2-1. Again, we lost Bolton 2-1, goalkeeping error. Then had our butts whipped at Shrewsbury in a real surprising performance, a real negative performance. But then since Shrewsbury, went to Reading away and beat them 1-0. Really good performance. The team started to come together. A few changes have been made here and there. I think Richie's still tinkering and may have found his kind of starting 11 now with a bit more experience in there, as opposed to a lot of young players and youth players on loan. And then we went to Stockport at the weekend thinking we'll take a draw because Stockport fly in. And then within the first 20 minutes, we're 2-0 up. And then when the full-time whistle goes, we've gone and beat them 4-1, and we're all ecstatic and loving life. So, yeah, a roller coaster of emotions, Rich, since getting out in the National League and those heady days of the Vanarama balls and bibs, coats and jackets and whatever they're wearing these days.
Long live Jacko, by the way, the proud sponsor of the National League.
Yes.
I guess that's the point, isn't it? If you look at the table now, and obviously this podcast goes out on Wednesday or Thursday, you will have played Peterborough by now, so sorry if the result's not up to date for anyone listening or watching on YouTube. But if you look at the table, it's easy to say, Orient have been quite bad this season. But like you said, the context is you've played 3 of the hardest teams at the start of the season when you try and gel anyway, and the results haven't been freshens. There's been, like you said, the Shrewsbury result was disappointing, but other than that, happy with the performances. And I guess, like you said, finished 11th last season. What were the expectations for you heading into the new campaign? And I guess, as you mentioned about last season as well, there is a long way to go yet, isn't there? Even though you feel like the table's starting to form after 6 matches, there is so much football left to play.
Yeah, I mean, on our own podcast, my co-host won't mention the table yet. And I'm like, come on, let's mention it, let's go. And he's like, no, not until 10 games, because if you look at it now, you're going to get caught up in the early results and lots can change. I mean, expectation-wise, obviously, like you said, we finished 11th last season. I think there was a few fans maybe pushing to challenge for a playoff place, but since the National League finished last season, League 2 finished, since the Championship finished, you look at the kind of teams in the league and go, right, I mean, there are 8 to 10 big clubs in there, and there's only 3 teams who are going to get out of the league the right way and do what they have to do. So I think most fans would kind of expect mid-table. I guess the more optimistic fans would be hoping for a playoff push. Me, I'd be happy to try and get 11th again. I think the difference between this Orient team and the Orient teams kind of gone by previously is that we've got a real good kind of mixture of youth players, and there's a whole good youth setup here which are coming through. I guess the one criticism is that the team are maybe too young and too inexperienced, and recently with the change of fortunes, we've got players like Omar Beckles back, who's centre-back, 30 years old plus, and a real good calm head on old shoulders. So maybe technically not as good as some of the other centre-backs, but in terms of what he brings and experience to the team, he seems to have really settled him down. We've brought in Don Ball on a free from Ipswich. He's only 29 years old, but again, really experienced. And those players have really kind of stepped up to the plate and maybe settled the team down a bit. We've got Jordan Graham returning, who was amazing last season. He got injured in October and was out for the season. I mean, he is Championship quality, but he just hasn't had a run in the team yet. He's almost back to full fitness. So there's lots to be optimistic about. And as well, as experience, like we just said. We've got some amazing young players like Ethan Galbraith, who scored a double at the weekend, Northern Ireland international. At some point, he will play in the Championship, hopefully with Leyton Orient, but maybe not. But Ethan Galbraith is a player who won't be around in League One for long. We've got Jordan Brown, again, another central midfielder, really tenacious player, really strong. We've got Ollie O'Neill, who's a Republic of Ireland under-21 international, and the left wing. He hasn't quite hit the heights of last season, but he is a quality player. So we've got a good mix of youth now and experience. I think Richie has found that kind of blend that he needs. So your best starting 11 might not technically be your best 11 technical players, but it's the way they all interact with one another. So yeah, coming into the Peterborough game, we're all fairly optimistic. But you look at our next kind of 3 fixtures, which is Peterborough, Wrexham, Exeter and Lincoln, and you go, they're all difficult fixtures. There are no easy fixtures in League One, so it's a really hard one to call in terms of where we're going to end up this season. But optimistic nonetheless.
And you mentioned there some of the stand-up players, certainly, like you say Jordan Graham being back's huge for you. Beckles, you got Darren Pratley, who's the club captain as well. You know, some names that will be familiar to Wrexham fans. You got Charlie Kelman on loan as well from QPR, who, you know, it looks again a good, promising young player. Who are the stand-up players then? I mean, like we said, there's the context of the Peterborough game that we don't know the result of yet. Yes. Recording, but ahead of the weekend, who are the ones that Wrexham should look out for all across the pitch, really? And what type of style of play do you play? What can Wrexham expect against you this weekend?
I think you won't find a team who are just going to hoof it upfield and hope for the best. You're going to find a team who are patient, and if they can't go forward, they'll go sideways and back. You'll find a team who will press you as hard as they can. So Richie Wellens' style is to press, and that really did work well against us, for us, against Stockport. We really pressed Stockport and forced them into lots of errors. So you'll find a team who will press, who will pass and give it their all. You know, a typical Richie Wellens battling team. So I think it'll be a good game. We tend to kind of play better against the teams who actually want to play football. So I think the only game where we got found out with Shrewsbury, and no disrespect to Shrewsbury, they're not kind of what you would say one of the better footballing teams in the division. So I think Wrexham's style may suit us a little bit. I think the ground also will suit us. I'm sure Wrexham fans and yourself aren't surprised by the fact it's a sellout. I'm pretty sure every game that you have at the moment is a sellout. So it's only a little ground in the context of League One. So it'll be just over 9,000 fans, 9,200 rocking. I think that'll help the team out. You mentioned Charlie Kelman. So we had Charlie Kelman when we won League Two, who was good. He didn't set the world alight. He only scored 7 goals in that season. I think already this season he's on 3 or 4. He's bulked up a bit. He's more manly. Still very young, but scored some good goals. He'll definitely get into double figures this season. We've also got Dan Adjie, who we signed from Crewe the season before last. Adjie is a quality player, scored a fantastic goal and got an assist on Saturday. I think he's growing back into the team now, playing on a different slightly position to what he's played previously last season. So I think Adjie and Kelman could cause you problems. And like I said, Ethan Galbraith, fresh from a double at the weekend against Stockport, I think will cause you problems as well. So I think going forward, hopefully we can do well. We also signed Jack Curry on loan from Oxford United. So he was at Wimbledon last season, won their Player of the Year and their Players Player of the Year. Got a decent move to Oxford, wasn't able to get anywhere near their team. We've got him on loan for the season. He's only played 2 games for us, but I think it's no coincidence, again, in those 2 games, we've won both of them. He's a real good attacking fullback, experienced, even though only 23 years old. So he might be able to cause you some problems down our left, down your right. So I think we're fairly optimistic going into this one.
Not too optimistic, though. Well, I was going to ask you, I guess it brings it on to the prediction, doesn't it, I suppose? Because, like you said, your results have been tight this season. You know, the only sort of anomaly is that Stockport win. So that's a positive one. Of course, you probably lost 8-0 to Peterborough yesterday, so who knows about that one? But heading into the weekend, say that you don't lose against Peterborough. There must be that positivity because at home you've got a good squad. You know, people will have a go at me for being so pessimistic, but in the same way that you won't be getting too worried about being 20th in the table at the moment, I'm not getting carried away by the fact we're top because the catchphrase alert, there's so much football left to be played. How are you feeling this weekend? Do you think you can get a result?
I think it'll be really tough, and I think we'll have to be at the top of our game. And I think our defence is going to have to be very switched on to kind of watch your forwards and the midfielders from Wrexham going forward and nicking something. I mean, hopefully, I think a score draw is on the cards here. I think we might be looking at a 1-1 or a 2-2 potentially. I think this season we haven't had many problems scoring. It's at the back and lapses of concentrations, and I'm sure you've seen all the action where teams are trying to play out from the back and they're making mistakes. We've done that this season a couple of times. So as long as we can cut out the mistakes at the back, I'd be fairly optimistic and hope that we could, maybe nick the first goal and then try and take it from there. But I think we will have to be at a really decent level at the top of our game to get anything from Saturday's game.
So Sooty, I think maybe a week or two ago, Orient away looked quite appetising, but they've just tonked Stockport at the weekend, a result that probably a few of us didn't see coming. As Steve said there, they are a team whose performances have been better than results this season. They've not been too concerned by their lower position in the table, and as we said at the start of the podcast, don't look at the table yet now, it doesn't count for anything anyway. This has got to be a really testing week for us, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Orient have had a really tricky start in terms of fixtures. It's not like they've had a couple of gimme early games where you thought, get the points racked up there. They have been, when their fixture list came out, I bet, they had a bit of a sharp intake of breath, really, because the danger is you start badly, like they did do, and then all confidence goes, but it doesn't sound from that, from the fan there, that doesn't seem the case at all, and by the manner of the performance at Stockport, definitely not. So, no, you're right, it's going to be a tricky one. The travel's a big thing. I don't know yet if they're flying to either game.
You're certainly not.
No, I'm definitely not. Definitely not. My trusty Ford Fiesta will be chugging up and down, don't you, where it's on the 50 mile an hour M1 all the way from the way I drive down. But if they're flying, then that helps because obviously you're back in your bed for sort of, you'd hope sort of 9 o'clock. Well, not back in your bed, back in your house 9 o'clock on Saturday night, and then obviously the Tuesday. It's another big one because you don't want to be getting back at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's going to be tough. Obviously they've had a change of manager with Steve Evans going back to Rotherham, but they were in the playoffs till about February, March. It only sort of went away from in the running, and I don't think the personnel's changed that much. I think they've had a couple of players brought in, haven't they? I think was it Jake Young and Dan Kemp, the tormentors from the opening day, from Swindon last season. And MK Dons that they've come in, so we know the quality they've got. I think it might be one of these where 2 points from the 6 is a good return, or one win, one defeat. Obviously, is a better return, but you've lost one game. But I think these are going to be tough, really are, and which is why it was so important the Crawley one, because, like I say, if you go in with 2 defeats and then you're going to 2 tough away games where you might not win either, then all of a sudden you've gone 4 games and, the know-it-alls from the outside are saying, oh yeah, bubbles burst. Ryan will be leaving, so will Rob, and well, every opposition fan seems to be saying. But no, Wrexham were going in a good place. There doesn't seem to be any injury problems. So, go down and take the game to them. And if you can get 4 points from Bolton and Peterborough, as I said, 3rd and 4th in division last year, why not 2 positive results this time?
Yeah, ahead of that game against Stevenage, we also caught up with Matt from the well-named Stevenage FC podcast. They should all be that simple, shouldn't they? Not RobRyanRed and crap like that, trying to cash in on their owner's fame instead of their own talent. But yeah, here's what Matt had to say ahead of that game. So Matt, thank you very much for joining us on RobRyanRed. We must say, anyone watching on YouTube, you haven't got a filter on. Your camera has broke. Was that out of frustration watching Stevenage, or...
From Saturday's performance, it could have well been. It's quite a tablet. I don't know what's going on with it at the minute, but no, it's quite funny you said that on our pod yesterday, reacting to the Exeter loss and the build up to week. One of the chaps when you smashed out the game on the weekend, did you in frustration? I was like, no, not really, but no, it's looking purple at the minute, but could have been.
Not a purple patch for Stevenage though. Like I said, we're recording this oddly on. Whenever you listen to this, last Monday, so a week and 8 days before we actually play you, due to scheduling issues, shall we say? What's the you played twice before. You played Wigan on Tuesday night, which will have been after we recorded this, and then you've got the game at the weekend as well. But what has the season been like so far for Stevenage?
It's been a really interesting one for us because kind of we've come into this season and it's kind of been our biggest season really, because I think, when you look at the division coming in and you see, even yourselves in the league doing the bits that you're doing, and you look at all the big clubs coming in knowing that we're a smaller club and new manager, it's kind of this season's our biggest. So we believe in the team, and we've had it's been a bit of a weird one really. We've had some really good matches, and then we've had probably our first kind of poor one on Saturday away at Exeter. So at the minute we're 15th, 7 points. We've got 2 wins, a draw, and 3 defeats from 6 matches. And I think that I'm probably on the more positive fan of Stevenage Football Club, but I think it's been a solid start. I think the opening 5 games we've seen some really good signs. The games that we won, we were brilliant. Opening day win against Shrewsbury, we looked a level above Shrewsbury on that game and should have won by more. And the 3-0 win against Barnsley was really good. It's like, we've missed some important players in the final third and they were back and everything clicked for us that day. And then we've had a couple of defeats in there where we lost to Huddersfield and Lincoln, and probably didn't deserve to lose those games. Huddersfield were great in the second half and Burton should have won and just couldn't score. So I think the opening 5 matches we've showed really good signs, even for the games that we haven't won, that potentially we're going to be a decent side this season. And then at Exeter on Saturday, it was our first poor game where the manager probably got the team wrong, I think, looking back on it. But no, it's been a really solid start. And I think for us this season, we just want to get over that dotted line, be in a comfortable place in the division and set up for the future in League One with Alex Ravel as manager. But no, to go back to your question, I think it's been a generally solid start from us.
You mentioned the weekend, and obviously this will be horribly outdated by the time it goes out. But you talk about the lineup. Who wasn't involved? Who should have been involved? Who are your key players that we should be worried about?
Good question. I think looking back at the game at Exeter seemed like a bit of a physical side, and we've been known for being a physical side the last couple of years, and this season again with the team we've got. But we played more of a kind of ball playing midfield rather than a physical midfield, and there was a few players that should have played, the Dan Phillips and Louis Thompsons, who kind of, they're a bit of hustle and bustle, we say. They do their jobs really well, they win their battles and their duels, and we didn't go with that Saturday, and it was very clear that we lost that midfield battle on Saturday, and that cost us the game evidently. But I think players that you'll need to watch out for yourselves. I think the captain Cole Piergiani, as ever, from set pieces, keep an eye, always wins the ball. He's got some unbelievable aerial duel statistics, Carlos. He's been our kind of pivotal player the last few years of our rise to League One, and he's just been brilliant this season again. We've got players in the midfield. Dan Kemp and Jordan Roberts are big players. I think Dan Kemp might feature against yourselves next Tuesday night. Very good player technically for the level. And we've got a couple in the final third. Jamie Reid, he's got a bit of a nickname at our club, Big Goal Reedy, because over the last couple of years he's kind of, I know it's quite silly, but last couple of years he's scored so many important goals, and again he's been part of that group that's taken us up to League One, and last year he had a great season. He's had a bit of a tough time coming into this season with a medical condition, missed the first opening month of the season, but he's back now, and we're seeing good positive things. I'd say those players that you'll need to look out for, and again, hopefully we can get the team right and hopefully give you a good game next Tuesday.
You mentioned there your style of play, that you went a bit more maybe expansive at the weekend, and it might have backfired a little bit. What is the Stevenage style of play this season? What can we expect on the pitch?
It's quite an interesting one, really, because for the last kind of few years under Steve Evans, we were known to be quite direct, right? And we were so good at what we did with the direct play. And I think when we started a new era and Alex Ravel's now manager, I think we thought, there might be a shift in styles here. And oddly, we can't actually look forward to that, because we look forward to playing a little bit more football than just your generic ball on, get the players in the final third and play from there. So it's been a bit of a strange one under Alex Ravel. And we had a chat with this in our pod. We kind of do a bit of both. We've got the direct approach where we get the ball forward early and we try and win our battles in the final third, get the ball down and play from there. But then also we've seen this season some really good footballing displays. So it's a bit of both of us at the minute, which I think is a good thing. But yeah, there's certain games where we've been direct, and then there's certain games where we've got the ball down and we've played really well. So it's a bit 50-50 of us in terms of the style. But I think it really comes down to what team we play, really. The one thing that I'm really proud of that we've got is we've got really good squad depth. We've got a bigger squad. And Rebs has made it a thing with us this season where we've got a bigger squad, but every player's a starting player. They can all compete to play and play a part this season. So I think the one thing that we've got that's very good, we've got a bigger squad so we can change and adapt the styles. But yeah, that's generally the style. It's been a bit direct. We have moved the ball as well and kept the ball really well. And it's a bit of a strange one. We just don't know how we're going to play when we play it because it could just be one of the two. So, but yeah, it's been a bit of both the start this season.
Obviously, Wrexham, Stevenage head-to-head. I mean, reminds us of our first season in the National League where we beat you 5-0 on the opening day and thought, this is going to be a piece of piss. We won't be in here for that long. 15 years later, we're going to play you and, being on your level is something we've aspired to be. You finished 9th last season. Highest ever finish was 6th in League One about a decade ago as well. I mean, what were the aspirations for Stevenage this season, considering, this is a level that is still, maybe as high as it's ever been? Are you dreaming of the Championship one day, or is it still just about being a League One team?
Oh, great question. I think for us, I think looking at this season, I think for us it's about kind of evolving and becoming a League One team. And, we've had an unbelievable rise. I mean, anyone that doesn't know our journey at Stevenage, 4 or 5 years ago, we were technically relegated to the National League, but we got kept up in a reprieve because of Macclesfield and Bury going bust. So we've had an unbelievable journey. People have called it one of the greatest turnarounds. And do you know what? I might agree with it. It really has been a real funny story. But, I think getting promoted last year, we just wanted to kick on and do as well as we could, and we did with 9th. But I think this season, knowing that we're in a new era and there's an opportunity to have the manager that we've got, Alex Ravel, for a long time. So I think for us this season, really the goal is just about staying in the division. It's very clear that it's probably our biggest and toughest and best league that we've ever been a part of. And I think for us, stay up, prove that we can stay up in these tough divisions and build the foundations for the future. But to go back to what you said, actually, it is quite strange that we're playing yourselves in League One, because it's one of those things where, if I'd have been told a good few years ago you'd be playing Wrexham in League One in a couple of years, it just would have been like, really? And do you know what? I remember we played, a couple of years ago, we played Aston Villa in the FA Cup away, and we won that night. Unbelievable night, the year that we got promoted. And the day before that, I actually went to the game that you played against Coventry in the FA Cup. When I think you're in League, no, I think you're in National League at the
National
time.
League, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember actually just being in the Coventry end, and there was a few, me and my friends all wearing our Stevenage Football Club gear. And again, just watching you there, if someone would have said, we'd be playing each other in League One in a couple of years, we would have laughed. So, I'm really looking forward to the game next Tuesday and seeing us play against yourselves. Yeah.
You mentioned there, having been in League One now for a little longer than us anyway. What have you made of the standard then? Are you surprised by the way it started in the opening few weeks of the season? Are you, like you said, it sounds like your results have been closer than the table suggests. You maybe, on another day you could easily be top half yourselves. So are you quite confident you can achieve something still this season, or do you think the quality is very high this season? I
think the quality's better than it was last year, but I think that was just inevitable with the amount of big clubs that are in the division, yourselves, Birmingham, Huddersfield, Rotherham coming down. So I think from what we've seen, the level is a lot better. So look, I really believe in our squad. People have underestimated us this season, and I get that because of the manager, and he's not the most experienced manager at League One level, although he has been manager of us before in League Two. But I really believe in our squad, and I think we can get a comfortable season where I think we can get into the mid-table, really compete there. I predicted us to maybe snag a 12th place finish this season. I think that's a position in the table that we can achieve. Most definitely with the squad that we've got. But yeah, the level of League One this season is probably the best league I've ever seen us in. And I think what's crazy about the division is, and you'll probably see it a lot more when you get to January and February, the top half of the division is pretty much Championship football, but the bottom's League Two. So it's like a transitional league. And it's such a weird league because if you're playing a side up the top, they're playing pretty much a Championship level style, and then you play a Shrewsbury who are pretty much League Two. So the league just mental in that respect, but it's a truly magnificent league. I think the level's gone up this season with it being the toughest League One that a lot of the expert pundits have said that it is this season, and it's just brilliant to see us involved. But no, I think there's a place where we can get into a a comfortable position in League One this season and stay up. I've got to be honest, I said it on our pod, if you offered me 20th, I'd bite your arm off for it. It would be quite nice to be more comfortable, but to know that we're there for the future, I'd take it most definitely.
And now I'm going to ask you the worst question imaginable, because you will have played twice before, like we said before we actually play you. Your prediction then for next week. Give us a Tuesday night at home. Are you feeling confident that could be a real marker and a real chance for you to show just how good you are? Or do you fear that, Wrexham, of course, will be in action this weekend against Orient away, that we could get an away win?
Well, look, Rich, again, you're speaking to the most positive Stevenage Football Club fan. Right? If you mention my name at the club, they'll go, "Oh my God, you've met me." Like the positivity. But I'm going to take my unbiased hat off because it is a really tough game, and you guys have had a brilliant start in the league. I can imagine you're pinching yourselves kind of from where you are in the division. Look, I think it's a tough game, as you say. We've got 2 games to them. We've got Wigan away, Charlton at home. I think Wigan tomorrow night's a real crucial match for us, where we'd probably have to win that up to 10 points. Who knows where we go from there. But again, look, we're at home. It's Tuesday night. What I'll say about us is we've been very good at home. We've got 6 points out of 9, and we shouldn't have lost the game against Lincoln that day. We gave away a silly penalty, and it was a really even game. So with it being at home, I think we've got a good chance of getting a result. I think it's going to be tough. Originally, I said maybe it might end up like a 1-1 and a draw, and I'd take that. But I think... go on, I'm going to go for it. 1-0. We're going to have to defend for our lives. I think there's going to be moments where maybe we're 1-0 up, we're defending for our lives. But why not? 1-0. Go on, 1-0.
Dare to dream. Dare to dream, eh? We will see what happens next Tuesday. Hopefully you get your screen fixed soon. Hopefully it's not as a broken performance on the pitch, though, for Stevenage. Let's say that. Matt, thank you very much for joining us.
Amazing. Thank you, buddy.
And Sooty, like you mentioned there, it's going to be a really tough week in terms of, not only the places we've got to go, the squads we've got to face, but managing the squad as well. Are you expecting to see any more changes, or do you think Parky will sort of stick with the same core of players for both matches?
The same core, but I think we'll see changes. I'd be particularly interested at wing back, because that's the most tiring role in the way this team plays. He didn't last weekend, but as a routine, he usually sort of takes both wing backs off, done his 65, 70 minutes. So would he change them? Because 3 games in a week's a lot to ask with the demands. If McLean's got the ball on the left hand side and he's attacking the box, Ryan Barnett knows he has to be at that back post. There's no way about that. No doubt about that. So that's a lot of going up and down the line. So I can see them changing. Does Rathbone and Cannon, do they intersperse? Does Fletcher get a start in one of these? I wouldn't be surprised at all. I would have thought we'll see a mixture of Marriott and Mullin starting. Maybe one starts 2 and the other 1. Which way around that'd be? Personally, I'd go for Marriott. Starts on Saturday, and then obviously if he scores with strikers, I think you're good going with them again, and then Mullin can come in when they're at home then against Northampton. But yeah, I think we'll see some changes. Maybe not so much the back 3, because I think they're doing really well. And I don't think we'll see a change of, like I said, the Scar, Brunt and Boyle all, could play in most of the League One teams, to be honest, but they can't get a sniff at the moment. But, I won't say it's a less draining position centre half than the others, but there's not as much going up and down the field, so maybe you could stick with them 3 for the 3. But I think we'll see a bit of tinkering across the team now. But I know obviously Elliott Lee has to start all 3 unless we see otherwise, and a change of formation. But yeah, I think we finally see that again, and then obviously later in the month, excuse me, there's another 3 league games in 8 days. So
yeah,
there's I think if you start with Leyton Orient game, something like 8 games in 30 days, something like that. So this is when the squad's going to come into play.
Yeah, we shall see, and let's hope that myself and Nath can get through it. Let's hope he doesn't have too many more weeks off as well. We have to get our very experienced substitutes, but good substitutes anyway. And Sooty, thank you as always for joining us on RobRyanRed today. And thank you very much for you listening wherever you do in the world. A shout out, as always, for the YouTube. If you're not subscribed there already, please do that. Massive thank you to Red 10 People Development for their continued support of the podcast. Shout out to Wrexham based band Hypnotic for the music and the stings as well. And of course, shout out, he's not here, but he will have edited this, Mr. Nathan Salt. I hope he's enjoying his week off in the sunshine. Hopefully he gets a better tan than I did in Cos, because I did not get one whatsoever, as anyone who saw me at Birmingham will attest to. Thank you very much. Take care, and we'll see you in a week's time.
The Wrexham AFC Podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.